I know a lot of videos about money making in Path of Exile promise that if you copy this one strategy, you'll make exactly as many exalts as the person who made it. And the reality is, because prices are constantly shifting, you may make a similar amount, you may sometimes make more, or you may make vastly less. And others don't really say, you'll make this much. They talk about, I made this much, doing these things. And because my content is largely about sharing my gameplay experience and sharing my knowledge, that's what this video is going to be. Recently, I've been making a lot of money, and finally, I got up to about 350 Exalted Orbs. I then traded those 350 Exalted Orbs for a Mirror of Calandra, the rarest currency in Path of Exile, an item so rare that I would wager most players have never seen one. Or, at the very least, never seen one outside of GFL clips. And then, I took that mirror, and I used it to purchase a Mageblood, another of the ultimate items in Path of Exile. Without a doubt, Mageblood is the most powerful item that exists in the game currently. It's not just that your flasks are active permanently. It's that they're active with 95% increased effect, and this effect applies to the suffixes on the flask. So, if you have 60% increased armor, it's not 60%. It's 195% of 60. And the same goes for res, move speed, or whatever else. For most players, I think it's fair to say that a Mageblood seems like an unobtainable goal. So I'm not going to promise that if you watch this video, you'll be able to make a Mageblood. In fact, I'm pretty sure that you can't do some of the things I talked about. They were products of their time, and that time has passed. On the other hand, a lot of the other methods that I used still work. And not only do they still work, but I'm still using them. You might not make a Mageblood, but you will be able to make some money. To start with, one of the things I did a lot of was crafting upgrades for my RF character. This is the part where I feel like the time has passed for a lot of these items. I was able to get a lot of crafting bases very cheaply, I was able to use Eldritch Chaos Orbs before they were nerfed, and as a result, I made a lot of money. Some of my biggest sales included an RF helmet that I sold for 35 exalts, RF gloves that I sold for about 20 exalts, a Righteous Fire chest piece that I sold for 40 exalts, although on that one I made 3 chests and that cost me 45 and I sold one for 40, so technically I was -5, and a Grasping Mail that I tried to make for RF didn't really turn out good for RF, so I sold it for 70 exalts because it was very good for cast on crit Forbidden Rite. These were fairly large sales, and there was also a significant cost associated with creating a lot of these items. So even though those are big numbers, well over 150 exalts, I'd say I got about 100 exalts in profit after all of the costs. On the other hand, over the last week, I got about 50 or 60 exalts in profit from selling flasks. This is a fairly simple process. You take flasks that are item level 84 or 85, and you just alt spam them. You alt spam them for things like Flagellants for gain charges when hit, Alchemists for increased effect. You look for suffixes like move speed, curse reduction, armor, evasion rating. If you think someone might use the flask, you should put it up for sale. Very often, it's quite inexpensive to make these. You can also throw Enkindling or Instilling orbs on them to give them a little bit of extra oomph. And while they don't sell for double-digit exalts, they'll often sell for 50 chaos, or even a couple exalts. I wouldn't try to copy my high-budget items. I wouldn't try to copy the crafting of high-end gear, because it's very difficult, and as I said, a lot of the prices have changed, especially with a nerf to Eldritch Chaos. It's going to cost you more to make these things than it cost me. On the other hand, if you want to start selling flasks, it's still incredibly profitable, and I believe it'll remain so until flasks are changed. But all that only accounts for about half of the total money I made. I did do a little bit of flipping. In this case, I saw that someone was price fixing 7 years bad luck. They were trying to lower the price artificially from 1.3x down to 1x, so I ended up buying quite a few of them as it was a decent profit, and I'd rather the money go to me than to a price fixer. Eventually, the price fixer got so mad that I was sniping them that they actually gave up. And this is a reminder, if you're selling a high-value item like that, don't just put it up based on the cheapest one for sale, actually check to see what the bulk of the listings are. Then from there, most of the rest of my money came from Expedition. Now, I'm not going to go into too many details for my Expedition strategy. If you want to see more about that, I'll be making a series of videos in the future, both with my strategy for logbooks, and also individual strategies for Rog, Tujin, and Danig. So be sure to subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell or hop into my Discord so that you can see when those are uploaded. And if you're finding this look at how I made a Mageblood in a week to be helpful, or maybe some new money-making methods that you can apply, Leave a like on the video and let me know down in the comments which money-making method you plan to try and what you plan to buy once you make the money, as that really helped me out with the YouTube algorithm recommending my content. So I started by doing mapping. When I was mapping, I'd run Expedition Scarabs, Harbinger Scarabs, the usual. I have a video on mapping which will be in the card if you're more interested in that. After I got a bunch of logbooks, I decided, hey, let's run some logbooks. They're the best content added in Expedition, and I bet they're still profitable. And oh boy, were they profitable. At worst, I was making 1 Exalta logbook. At best, I was making 2 to 3. And even over a sample size of hundreds, this proved to be incredibly consistent. I did about 8 hours of farming logbooks on stream, and probably about double that off stream. And because I was running them relatively quickly, I ended up making about 150 to 200 exalts just from logbooks. If you're watching any of that, you might think that the raw drops themselves aren't all that profitable. And even if you count selling things like exotic coinage, it's still not adding up to dozens or hundreds of exalts. The reason for this is, in logbooks, most of the value right now comes from the artifacts, which is why for all of my strategies, artifacts were a big part of my emphasis. You can use Danig artifacts to get more logbooks to get more artifacts. You can also get them for Tujen, Gwenin, and Rog. Now, I was just selling all of my Gwenin stuff, because it's a big gamble. You could use 7,000 Astragalis and get 2 Magebloods, or get nothing at all, with very little in between. So I'd rather just sell and let someone else take the gamble. On the other hand, I was using all of my Tujen currency. It was very tedious, it was very annoying. In fact, for a lot of things that cost lesser and grand, I would just buy it as full price without even bothering to haggle, because the time spent haggling was actually losing me money. More about that in the video focusing on Tujen. And then finally, I made a very significant amount of money off of Rog. The reason for this is Rog is basically free crafting. He's especially free because his logbooks are considered low value, not many people are using the rerolls, and you can pick up almost as many as you want and be really picky to pick out the best deals. Which means when you're using Rog, you have to think a lot more about what you're doing, but you have much better margins. So all in all, I didn't really log my hours for this. I wasn't super scientific. Although I did calculate out the profit per hour from the logbooks and from some of the expedition stuff. But it took me a week of playing to earn the Mageblood. There were about 3 days where I played really efficiently, and then 4 days where I played significantly less efficiently, including a Saturday where I appeared on Fated Connections and didn't do very much in-game at all. In that time, I earned 350 exalts in profit and bought a Mageblood. This isn't the only way to get a Mageblood. And I'm not saying that you can now go out and run logbooks and in a week you're guaranteed to have one. But if you craft and sell flasks, you will make a profit. If you run expedition in your maps, over time you will make a profit. You'll make that profit through rerolls, artifacts, and logbook drops. And of course, if you run logbooks and if you use all the artifacts that you get, possibly with the exception of Gwenin, then again, you will make a profit. But if you want to know more about expedition, stay tuned for my future videos. But that was my experience making money in 3.17 Arch Nemesis. And now I'm curious, what was the most expensive item that you ever bought in Path of Exile, and how did you make the money? Feel free to share that down below, and who knows? Maybe your experience will help someone else. And if you try any of these methods for yourself, let me know how they go. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, be sure to put them down in the comments below, or join the Discord, where you can ask questions, get build help, and hang out with the community. A special thanks to my patrons and YouTube channel members. They're awesome, and they get to show it by having their name on screen in the credits of all my videos. So if you want to see your name here, be sure to check the link in the description. For more general gaming content, check out my second channel, 10 Gaming Thoughts, and if you want a water bottle or a cool shirt, I have a link to my official merch shop in the description. I hope you learned something today, and I hope to see you again sometime soon.